Today on r/IDontWorkHereLady. Thank you for your service, sir. This is cosplay. So mine isn't a crazy one where a Karen goes nuts, but it's still very funny to me to this day. About 2019, I was coming home from a convention where I was wearing my casual Sunday cosplay, which is Ripley from the movie Alien. Jumper suit with patches and white tennis shoes. I decided on my way from the convention to hit my local liquor store to stock up in my favorite drinks for the week, since I was out. While I was in there, I was looking through a selection when someone tapped me on my shoulder. I turned around, and this large burly man with a thick beard was standing there looking down at me. I'm 5'4". Before I could ask him what's up, he threw his arm up and saluted me while pronouncing loudly, "Thank you for your service." I was stunned and was unable to say anything as I was confused why he said this, but before I could clarify, he turned on his heels and went on his way out the door. As he was leaving, it dawned on me of two things. One, I was wearing a jumper suit that looked very much like one in the Air Force. Two, there was an Air Force training facility on the outskirts of town. I was still shocked by the encounter as I brought up my drinks, and the attendant laughed and said, "Would you like your military discount?" He recognized the patches as being from Alien. I laughed at that, and then left after buying my booze. My dad, who is an Air Force veteran, laughs every time at this story, and says that I need to wear it more often for those reactions. For our next story. Lady thinks I work at the store because I have a radio and earphone on. Well, it finally happened. I got Karen'd yesterday. Some background first. I am a 6'3" bearded fat man with a LE and private security background. I'm also currently an operations manager for a state facility that provides temporary housing for children and teens who are waiting for a foster home. A few days ago, my other manager and I received fairly substantial bonuses for getting our new intake facility opened a month ahead of schedule. Since I'm not really in need of the bonus, I offered to help my team by helping them out with some expenses and help make their time at work better. One of the main things everyone wanted was more caffeine, since we all chugged that stuff like water throughout our shifts. Since everything was quiet at work, I decided to slip out to Wally World so I could get caffeine to stock the staff fridge and acquire a working coffee machine. Cue me standing in the appliance section looking at coffee machines and debating getting a single or multi-cup machine, when this little Hispanic grandma comes up and asks me if I could get something off the top shelf for her. She was nice and thanked me for my help, and I went off to the caffeinated drink area. As orders filtered in from my team on what drinks they wanted, I started looking around for them. It was during this time that the woman I will call Karen struck. Out of nowhere, I heard the shrill, piercing voice from this woman who looks to be in her mid-50s, and that had walked straight out of the woods and into Walmart. "I need you to come with me right now." Of course, I ignore it and continue looking for the drinks my team wanted. The next thing I hear is, "Excuse me, young man, you need to come with me right now." I did a quick look around to see if there was a kid or employee around, cause surely she wasn't talking to the guy in gray cargo pants and an olive drab button-up shirt, but there wasn't anyone else around, so I asked, "You mean me?" She shouts, "Yes, I mean you. God, are all managers this dumb?" I reply, "Ma'am, I don't work here." She yells back, "Yes you do. Is that radio of yours broken? Did you not hear them call for a manager?" At this point I realized I still had my radio on from work and respond, "No ma'am, I didn't, but that's I get cut off. They gave you a radio, use it. Now come with me." They're refusing to give me a refund. I was just staring blankly at her. "No ma'am, I don't work here. I'm in a her. How dare you refuse to help me? You helped that dirty slur for a Hispanic person, but you won't help a God-fearing white person who is being taken advantage of." I finally lost it at this, stood up straight, puffed my chest out, and called out my law enforcement voice. "Look lady, keep your racist effing mouth shut and listen. I don't work here. Do you see what I am wearing? I am not dressed anything like an employee." Karen tried cutting me off, but the rat I knife hand her while saying, "Lady, did it ever cross your mind that maybe it is for my actual job? I don't work here, and I don't want to hear another effing word. If I see you in this aisle by the time I finish grabbing that box of energy drinks, pointing a few feet away, I am going to make the rest of your time in this store a living hell." At that she just scuttled away and I finished stocking the staff break room for my team. Let's dive into our next story. A half hour in the military. A few years ago, if you consider 25 to be a few, I was in the American military for half an hour apparently. Here's how it happened. This, by the way, was in the UK. After a strenuous period at work, I was given a few weeks off to relax, and decided to head down and visit a very old and dear friend of mine who owned a large property near a military base. This proved to be a mistake as, obviously, it was incredibly noisy due to the arrival of a large number of American troops for some sort of joint training exercise. I got myself some earplugs, a book, and relaxed in the backyard while my friend, who ran a nearby pub, was serving booze and roast dinners. I had just gotten to chapter 6 of a book, and was dozing off when my nap was interrupted by the increasingly loud enraged scream of what turned out to be a large bald man who looked like he would be wearing sunglasses if he could possibly get away with it. Before I knew it, I was in an arm lock being dragged across the garden to the gate, and dragged down the street. Cutting through a large amount of dragging, yelling, and not listening to me at all, we arrived in an office where I was handcuffed to a chair. Enter Provost Robotnik, a large man with an amazing red mustache and no other visible hair. Conversation is approximate because 20 years. Also, at the time I was not in the best mood for observation. Provost Robotnik, son, you were caught in the yard of some local. What y'all got to say for yourself? Me, sir, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just staying here with a friend. Provost Robotnik, soldier, wait, you're not even American, are you? Me, someone just came in and grabbed me. I was born down in Cornwall. At this point, the man just goes entirely red. I mean solid red. Pulsing vein, gritted teeth, the works. The fact his mustache was vibrating was, after the fact, fascinating. He screamed something in a pitch too military for us mere mortals' ears to understand, and 3 men just materialized. I swear, no one opened a door. They were just there. The man who had dragged me in was manhandled rapidly into the room at what I understand could very quickly become gunpoint if needed. I was unlocked, released and escorted back to the garden with Robotnik profusely apologizing the whole way. Later, I was told in the pub that the man who had arrested me was up for some sort of promotion and was looking for any tiny thing to gain an edge, and a skiving soldier was just the thing. No one had any idea why he thought I was one. I still exchange Christmas cards with several of the soldiers, and the provost joins us every few years for a roast dinner in the pub. I think he's actually gained weight. On to the next story. The day I got my performance review at a place I never worked at. Hi there, long-time lurker, first-time poster. This story happened about 10 years ago, so I was at the big-name box store, let's call them Walmart. I was looking for some video games, the PS4. And the Xbox One just released at that time, and I was looking to see if they had any new Xbox 360, PS3, or Nintendo 3DS games. I looked behind me, and I noticed this woman following me around with a clipboard. I then made my way over to the Pokemon cards, and grabbed a few of them. I looked behind me again, and I noticed her looking at what I was doing, shaking her head. I then made my way up to the cash register at the electronics section. As I was standing in line, she kept writing on her clipboard. I didn't take much notice of it and just minding my own business waiting for my turn. Once I got to the register, the lady then looked up from a clipboard and said, "Wait, where is your uniform? Do you even work here?" I turn around and look at her because I get this a lot from other people, but it normally doesn't take them this long to figure it out. We stand there looking at each other for about 5 to 7 seconds when another guy that looks exactly like me comes out. At this point she burst out laughing, and I turned around and realized the situation. She thought I worked there, and actually did my performance review without me even noticing. We both stood there, laughing for a few minutes, and eventually I paid for my stuff, and went to McDonald's for lunch. I saw her a few minutes later. She came in M's daughter and went together and ate lunch. Even though I never worked here in the first place, we stayed friends for a little bit until I lost contact with her in 2016. So yeah, that's the story of how I got my performance review from the place I never worked at. Sorry this doesn't have any screaming Karens or whatever, I just thought it might be nice to have a nice wholesome story. Edit. The reason why they mistook me as an employee was because I was wearing a blue sweater with black sleeves. For our next story. Outperforming store staff. Some of my boss is on a work trip in Toronto and called me just to check in how things are going here. He was having a riot with his day and was laughing up a storm. Apparently he had forgotten to pack underwear and not enough dress shirts for his trip. Single 40-year-old guy, so no one to help him pack. So he popped out to some store to go and get himself more clothes. Now let me preface this with, when we are working, he's always casually dressed, but when he's at a meeting he looks top tier. Always. And the man is a silver-tongued devil. He could sell ice to an Eskimo. His tale told to me he was at the store browsing some dress shirts when an older man came up to him in the store, asking about hats that were on the wall beside the shirts. His automatic answer was, "Well, let's take a look at what they have." After spending 5 minutes browsing, the other guy found a hat and was questioning sizes. And the boss's answer was, "Well, let's see what size this is," and checked the inside of the hat. Which yielded promising results, but my boss, always looking for fun, said to the guy, "This hat is great. It looks great on you. But you should get two. You should get another one in a different color, because this color is for this kind of social situation, but this color is for that kind of social situation." Of course he talked the man into buying 2 overpriced hats at this high-end dress store. Said the hats were a couple $100. Then 15 minutes later, when my boss found his clothes and was ready to pay, he stood in line right behind the guy he just upsold. The guy looked at him and was, "You don't work here, do you?" And my boss smiled and said, "No, I was just doing some shopping," at which point the other guy turned beet red and paid for his hats and bolted. The manager was on the till chuckling and said, "You upsold better than any of the staff who work here." Our last story for today. Right track, wrong train. I'm a physical therapist and work at an outpatient office. It's located in one of those strip mall plazas where there is a string of multiple businesses together. A guy walked into the office with his kid. I was over at my desk doing my charting, and he calls out to me. He says he wants to rent an RV. There's an RV store right next to the PT office. So I was like, oh, I'm actually a physical therapist, and this is a PT office. The RV place you're looking for is the next door down. Simple, right? No, you. This is where you go to rent RV, this is where the map or address told him to go. I explained again that it's right next door. The next door down is the RV place. This is a physical therapy office. The RVs are even parked over on that side in the next lot. For some reason he just kept getting really mad and insisting he was here to rent an RV, and I had to tell him a couple more times that I couldn't do that because this is a physical therapy office, not an RV rental business. Suddenly a door to one of the treatment rooms opens, and a man comes out pushing his elderly mother in a wheelchair. This is indeed a medical establishment. The man at the door looked at them with angry surprise and actually scowled, realizing I was telling the truth. Unable to admit to this easy mistake, however, he then looked at me, pissed, and said to his son, "Come on, let's get out of here, this lady is kinda rude," and left in a huff. So that was how my rudeness cost our physical therapy office an RV sale. I didn't get my commission that day. And those are all the stories we have for today. See you tomorrow.